You know, I'm very privileged to touch this wonderful organ. It's absolutely magnificent. And this piece is very special to me because it was an official anthem, religious anthem of 18th, 19th century music written by Lysenko. When music, word, painting, press, school was prohibited, people sang this song, "Oh God, oh Almighty." So this was a very quiet moment. And I decided to make fortissimo at the very end for you. Thank you. I'm going to start with this piece that basically unknown to most of Ukrainians too, because this piece was gone and only been found 100 years later in Paris Academy of Music. So I'm going to play a piece by Dmytro Bortniansky. But before this, I just want you to look at this slide, the previous slide. The previous slide, this piano. I've been told that this piano has been thrown from the 6th floor of the apartment by the bomb. And what I've been told that it's still playable. And for me, it's a kind of symbol of resilience of Ukrainians and the courage and the force and power to carry on. This is a place where I was 18 years old, where I had my first solo concert in a city called Mariupol. And there's 600 people in the bomb shelter in the basement of this theater. And even though it's in the front, it was written in Russian, "Children" in white, they still bombed us. For me, this is another kind of wave of tragedies, that Russians not only bombed, but they put a Russian culture in front. On these banners that circle, there's on the left is a very famous Russian poet, Pushkin. The next one is a very famous Russian writer, one of the most, Leo Tolstoy. And after that, 3 Ukrainians that have been kind of put in the same band. So it's not about war for land, for power, for resources. It plans to destroy the statehood, national identity, and to hijack what has been conquered through culture and art. And because of this, I'm going to play for you a piece that is unknown to many. A piece by composer Bortniansky. I'm sorry about that. But thank you. Everybody knows the music by Haydn and Mozart. And very few people know the music by Bortniansky, because his music being basically hijacked by the Russian court. And very few pieces for harpsichord and piano exist right now. I'm going to play for you a piece that originally been written for harpsichord or every piano. And you will witness the very special piece of art. One of the first in Russian Empire, in Ukraine, and probably in this part of Eastern Europe. It's called Sonata in C major. Keep in mind that you're in a very quiet chamber kind of form of audience, and I'm playing harpsichord, or very early piano for you. non-pretentious piece, very kind of elegant, but at the same time, maybe pay attention that he kind of moved from part to part. And this because he was wonderful opera composer. When he moved, he was born in Ukraine, educated in Ukraine, and he moved to Italy with his patron, Levko. He was very famous opera composer in Venice. And he stayed for 10 years in Italy. He wrote 6 operas in French and also in Italian. Padua, Venice, Bologna, and after that, Russian court sacked him back. And after that, his music was not available. Only a year and a half. Accidentally, someone found in Barcelona one of the manuscripts of his opera that probably been staged in Italy. And in Ukraine, under these bombs and under this, no heat, no water, they staged this opera last year.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to play music by Mykola Lysenko. If you won't remember any names, any titles today, please remember Lysenko. Because he was kind of like a musical prophet. He was well educated in Europe, came back to Ukraine, and what he started to do, he started to take the folk elements, dance, instruments, children's songs, Cossack dance, and he started to incorporate into music. 600 pieces he recorded from the villages, and his output more than 40 volumes. Only 20 volumes published up to now, and the full genre from opera to the cantata to the operas. Just imagine. And he's only one composer in the world who wrote 122 pieces of all genres on the text of one poet, Taras Shevchenko. So it was a commitment not to write music to one poet, but also to preserve what been almost damaged, and not to put as an ethnomusicologist grab tape and put in archives, but to incorporate in a living genre. So I'm going to play for you first short piece, probably connected to the folk tune, like this. It's your fault. This folk tune. And what Lysenko did in his elegy, Thank you. You know, even though genre elegy kind of like more lyrical, but for me it's a very tragic piece. It's very emotionally loaded because this man wrote all his life this music that he never expected to be performed. And for artists, it's a tragedy. If you're a painter, you make this hundreds of paintings and nobody see this paintings. It's a strength and power to move through this. So Lysenko start to incorporate next elements. Instruments. Very often in African music too, composers start to put some rhythm, some drums, some sound of the call response from them, from the folk tradition into contemporary music. So he was doing this in 19th century under tremendous pressure of not putting anything like this inside. So I'm going to play this piece called Rhapsody, but before this, I just want to look at this instrument. It's called bandura. A bandura being developed probably in 16th, 17th century. We don't know exactly, and we don't even know the root. It seems to me, maybe it's my opinion, in the Persian kind of connection to Ukraine. But in Ukraine, it's the most authentic ancient instrument called bandura. And it's like a harp like this. There's a broken pluck string. And the mode of bandura is very often for me it's quite Middle Eastern, but it's called Duma mode. It's like a raga, but raga has 11 modes that we know. Probably Duma has at least 7, 8. Now we know only 2. So, and Lysenko employed these elements of the mode in this piece. Also, he brought music from the village, dance, girls' dance. Or children's song, very simple. Or Cossack dance. Matching, pride, brisk. And look at this painting. This is almost like a folk icon in Ukraine. Because it's from 16th century, 17th, 18th, it was exactly the same position of all these elements. And when you look at this, when I was young, I didn't pay attention to all these elements. But now, I just want to look at this painting, ladies and gentlemen, and tell me, where is the spear in this painting? See the spear? It's behind, exactly. Where is the sword? Also in the back, behind, right? Can you see it over there? Where is his pistol? Also behind. And the powder part. What is in front of you as a recipient? What is in front? What is the focal point of this painting? It's bandura, basically, only in a different form. So, for Ukrainians, even though he's a warrior, he is a Cossack, but all this paraphernalia and military strength is behind. In front is the music and I would say kind of elegance, and even his posture. He is kind of like I would say, in praying or meditation, Buddha-like kind of. It's not a warrior with a sword on the horse. So it's very different. So, and I would like you to experience this piece. It's called Rhapsody, based upon Ukrainian themes. It's called Dumka Shumka, means thought with a clouds or shouts. So a kind of mishmash. But it will be bandura element, folk instrument. It will be girls' dance, children's song, and maybe something else. If you hear something, clap or do something, that I will know that we on one line. Rhapsody by Mykola Lysenko. Next piece I would like to play is been written by Levko Revutsky. He was a symphonist. He wrote symphonies. And at some point he was told by authorities that his music doesn't fit in the social realism framework that was predominant at that time in Soviet Union. And he was actually banned to write for the big orchestra. So all his life, after that, he wrote small pieces for piano, arrangement of the folk songs, children's songs, arrangements. And I'm going to play for you a very, very small piece. It's almost like 4 minutes. It's called very simple, Melody. But I just want you to imagine this piece came from the symphonic mind, or layers of the symphonic kind of presentation. So, piece by Levko Revutsky, Melody. The next piece is a very different. His name is Stepovy. Yakov Stepovy. He wrote music mostly for choir, because choral music predominant kind of vehicle for art expression in Ukraine. They sing in polyphonic music, not one voice, not two voices, 4, 5, 6 parts. It's called partesny speak, parts. So it's very, very common, not only in the church, but also in the daily life. People sing like 2, 3, 4, 5 voices. And I remember this, how my grandparents, after a meal with friends, they sing for an hour. Unfortunately, my son doesn't sing anymore. So this is a kind of culture that can be, cut off. So we have to, and I'm so happy to see young students. I have a master class today at the university. And when these two young men, 3 or 4, came back, this is what I'm doing this concerts. This is what I'm doing this concert for young people who are interested and who, again, with this kind of gesture of friendship and compassion and interest. Thank you, guys. For you. For young people. And he wrote this music, Stepovy, for a main choral piece for choir. And the censor, Russian censor, said, no way, no lyrics by poet Taras Shevchenko. So this composer transcribed his choral piece for piano, and it's still titled "In the Memory of Taras Shevchenko," this poet. And this is his face. This is his portrait, because he was basically serf. He was a slave, and he got out of slavery. He's a very famous artist and poet. And for this, he been actually sentenced Russians for 10 years in military prison. And at that time, it was almost a death sentence. And the Russian Tsar put on the margin, and I will forbid this man to write and to paint. And the poet made size, like it's handmade book, and he hid this book under the military boot, which is military compound. This is why it's called in Ukraine under the boot poetry. And as I said, that it's not only a destruction, it's not only grabbing of the land, but also, besides this is the bust of this poet. You see this bullet holes from machine gun. I'm going to play a piece by Yakov Stepovy in the memory of Taras Shevchenko. And basically, he's a poet like a prophet for Ukrainians. Probably, if you go to any village in Ukraine at that time, or it will be icon on the right side of the corner, embroidery kind of towel with a sign like this one, kind of. And by the way, if I would wear this embroidery shirt on the Russian occupied territory, probably I will be shot or put to prison, and for my allegiance to. This piece, very interesting. Pay attention to my bass, because mostly on the left low range, because it's originally for male choir, for male chorus. So I'm going to play for this piece, this method, and just imagine that this is a piece with a poetry, with lyrics. Let them listen. two brothers, lived in Ukraine, educated, well respected composers, young and older, lived in the same city, independent Ukraine, 1919, 1920, 1921. Russian province independence. One brother stayed in Ukraine, this composer that they played, and 2 years later died, unknown cause. As usual, heart attack or whatever, that time. We don't know. The older brother immigrated to Paris, to France. His music was unknown to me, and to almost none in Ukraine. Because everybody who left Ukraine at that time considered as traitors. His name never been mentioned, neither in the book, nor in encyclopedia, textbooks. His music is gone. I never played his music until a year and a half ago. I started interested in this music, and I decided to bring it out. He passed away in 1945 in Paris, and most of his music is still unknown at that time. So I'm going to play for you this piece with a gap. Probably it's written, I might guess, in like late 30s, maybe late 40s. It's my guess. I don't know the date. But connection to French Impressionism, very obvious. So probably been written in France. And very often, like in every stressful situation, like a war, or artists moving out of your realm, out of your motherland, out of your culture that you grew up. And it's like a mature tree to transplant from one soil to another soil. And the chance for survival is probably 50%, maybe less. So this exactly happened to this composer in a way of his output, on his impact on the culture in Ukraine and beyond. So I'm going to play this special tree that we planted and almost neglected. This is called Capricious Sea by composer whose name was Akimi. You know, even his last name, the brother who left, who stayed in Ukraine, he changed his last name to pen name, Step Away, because of the fear that he will be associated with. So, Capricious Sea by Taras Filenko. how tired we are. More. I'm going to play a very special piece because I have two options: short piece and long. What do you prefer? Honestly, long it will be very difficult because for me, I played this piece before, but I'm kind of reluctant sometimes to play this because there's 5 parts. But what is important to me is to almost to have a reflection of the state of mind of Ukrainians. This is contemporary piece with a kind of like a disassembled elements, almost like a loop. Like, when I was in Ukraine, I walked on the street and I saw a beautiful young woman like Lysenko with a girl, and a girl carrying bandura, which is a heavy instrument. And she was dressed up beautifully under circumstances. And the girl, and I stopped and said, thank you so much for giving your daughter, your child, this life. And the kid said, you know what, I also play guitar. I don't know, maybe 10 years old. And we just chat. And suddenly, I asked about school, and suddenly, she said, oh, stupid me, I have a high heels. I'm wearing high heel shoes. And I said, so what? And she said, if you bomb attack, I know how to run to the shelter, but how I'll run on the high heels. So point is, and I was shocked because, we're just talking about very mundane things, but in her mind, this kind of loop of what if, how should do this? And this is kind of the mental stage of so many Ukrainians. They can, I talked to my cousin who was wounded, and he was kind of little bit, he was talking about the same over and over and over and over and over. After it stopped, this kind of discombobulation. And when I start playing this piece again, this is for me, this is kind of stage of plus they sometimes so lyrical. They're talking about life and about sunflowers and poetry and after the cloud happened and some very dramatic, some impact their speech. So I'm going to play for this piece. It's 5 parts. It's very different. One part is very kind of, and one part is kind of almost painfully ostinato. Ostinato means kind of something repetitive. Like at the very end, please be patient because composer used kind of strange technique to me. But now I can kind of get it. He's using this, it's called cluster. And quietly I'm keeping one triangle. Can you hear? Cluster, 1 chord, 2nd chord. So out of this mess, out of this kind of discombobulation, and suddenly 1 chord, and very quiet, so I'm holding on. So just pay attention to the very end because it will be, even for me it was. So I'm going to play this piece, Bortniansky. Lasted about 14 minutes. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. I've been taught in my family that my cousin in Ukraine, I'm calling him, and this and that, and let's run, no lights, no. But you know what? At the very end of the conversation, my wife, she found a fresh fish yesterday in the market. And let's, on a positive note, finish our conversation. And he always trying to find something positive out of this. So, summertime. Been written by George Gershwin. The reason why I put it in this concert, first of all, like a fantastic singer who really, one day said, sure, I will do this. I will do everything for Ukraine. And she's going to sing for us Summertime. But Summertime was not just an accidental piece, because, I will tell you later, but George Gershwin put for the first time basically black slaves in America, in the 30s, to the stage of the most prestigious opera house in that time in the world, Metropolitan Opera. He wrote the opera Porgy and Bess. And the aria in this opera, when the mother singing a lullaby to the daughter, enslaved woman, and she said, maybe one day you will fly away. Summertime and the living disease. Fish are jumping, and cotton is high. Your dad is rich, and your mom is good looking. So actually good lady. And this man, George Gershwin, put Ukrainian lullaby in the theme of the song. Because and it's called the song, the dream is walking around your windows. His grandfather came from Ukraine, from Odessa. Nothing is accidental. Can I ask you to come to the stage, please? This is a sign of friendship. You know what? On the door of this cathedral, very special cathedral. It's not just a church. It's not just a cathedral. It's a tremendously important historic place, not only for people who live there and who pray there, to the rest of the world. And then when I walked today, I was stuck with my humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together.
Till my dear and mama are standing by.
For me, this is the ultimate sign of friendship. Yesterday, I asked this wonderful singer, can you sing this piece? Sure. How often does sure can happen in your life? Only because of the big heart and generosity and compassion. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, in this case, small vignette. Summertime and Carol of the Bells. You know Carol of the Bells, right? Pre-Slavic, pre-ancient tune from Ukraine, when the man dances and asking rain, beautiful sun, a new year to come, and they kind of pray in a kind of circle, in this kind of, almost like a trance. I saw the labyrinth outside of the church, by the way, the kind of trance. And the composer, his name Leontovich, he just made arrangement of this piece. Unfortunately, he been actually killed also in 1922, like many others. But this song been brought by a choir to Europe. And the choir been sent by a government of Ukraine that was independent state at the time, 1919, 1920. As a cultural diplomacy too. And when they were in Europe, Russians cracked independence of Ukraine and acquired stateless. After wandering around, they ended up in New York. And for the first time, people heard this from the stage of Carnegie Hall in New York City. In this concert, probably Gershwin was there. So I'm going to put this little vignette and summertime for you. Very special moment today in the annual concert. This piece that you're going to hear now, became almost an official anthem of Ukrainians. With all these losses and all these tragedies, people just singing the song and you hear the song. It's called melody, very simple melody. But this melody became kind of like a backbone of strength and resistance. We're going to play this piece with a wonderful musician, violinist, Lady in Red. Linda, where are you? Thank you so much. Thank you for all. I think that it's not only just a special place, but very special people. I feel like you're my family. I'm not just a listener, and I'm not playing. I'm just sharing my heart and my soul and everything that is very close to me with you. Thank you so much for being with me this time, and with all of us, with all Ukrainians who need any positive news, any comment, any gesture, any breath, any special move like this. Thank you so much again to all.